dreaming on. Days are gone, dreaming on, away from the slumber and answer the call. The torch has been lighted, the dawn is at hand. Who tried in the fight for his own native land? Land of my birth, land blessed truly, loyal and faithful to thee.
Now for the comrades who are joining this video, talk to me please. You ever go anywhere and hear the PNP anthem sing so? What about you Laborites? Laborites who are on the video. Talk to me now. You ever hear PNP? You ever hear PNP sing them songs so? Talk the truth now. And it look like, what you say, you want encore? You want me to play it again? All right.
From the slumber and answer the call. The torch has been lighted, the dawn is at hand. Who tried in the fight for his own native land? Land of my birth, land blessed truly, loyal and faithful to thee.
What my people may never know so sound a wicked to themselves. Only they really want to hear it a second time. And then proud of themselves too, At the end of it, then think them song good and say one PNP. Talk truth. Now, I put it to you, my friends, that these must have been the risers as sing the PNP anthem, Jamaica Rise. But if you think that is a fluke, and maybe them just couldn't sing, listen to this one. This is in Montego Bay now.
The time in the fight for his own native land, land of my birth and best to thee, and the faithful chose to thee.
And that sterling singing was courtesy of Comrade Michael Troop from down in Montego Bay. He's a councillor. That sums up also the state of the People's National Party. Nobody takes any pride, not even in how them deliver the party song. And these two are not the only two. I've heard others can't sing for save them life, and don't tell me say so much people tone deaf. Anyway, folks, let me welcome you to Jamaica 411. And I have a special program for you today. We'll be hearing what NNN had to say about Mass PJ's speech. Lord, when I listen to George, me not tell no lie, me shame. PJ was never I never supported him. Right? From all of them misadventures in the 90s. It was Portia I wanted to be leader from when Michael resigned. But unfortunately, the delegates of the PNP gave us PJ Patterson and they got what they wanted. They wanted 4 terms and they got it. Unfortunately, the party suffered a great deal of licks during that time, and PJ Patterson never sought at any time to set the record straight. All when he was talking about politics being about scarce benefits and spoils, or the politics is like scarce benefits and spoils, and Perkins had it, except for talk about him never said it, or yes, himself never said so, right? How Perkins was quoting him, and Perkins brought the evidence of when he said so. I think he said it on a GIS program, right? All of the scandals, which could have been easily explained, he sought not to defend the party. Closed mouth. And now he's paying the penalty for it. But then so is the party. Anyway, I want to say a special welcome to my subscribers. Welcome back. Always lovely to have you. And of course, reading your comments. And I read some, so it took me a little late and I may not be able to put out this video tonight, but I read some and made a few comments. Yes. So please keep the comments going. Please also, everyone, give the video a thumbs up. From now on, please give the video a thumbs up. Yes. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do so. As well as everyone, I need you to share the video. So I thank you all in advance. And of course, now that you're back with me, let's get down to business. Now I'm going to let you listen to what George Davis had to say. And I should tell you, when I was listening to him, I feel shame. I feel shame for PJ, but I cannot disagree with anything that he said. Occasionally, I may butt in a bit to make some clarification. And when I say clarification, just to add to what it is that he's saying. I can't disagree with anything that he said because it seems to me that he was very fair.
March 30, 1992. March 30, 2006. Two dates significant. March 30, 1992 is when Percival James Patterson was sworn in as Prime Minister. And then March 30, 2006, 14 years later, he stepped out of office as Prime Minister. I've spoken here already about Mr. Patterson's time in office. He's a cricket man. He loves the cricket analogies. So his time at the wicket. Last week at the summit, he held court as he sought to set the record straight, defending his time in office. And if you weren't here, you would have been led to believe that one of the most successful premierships in Jamaica's political history was underplayed, was overlooked, was vilified in some respects by members of the media, by people who comment today on public affairs. And you'd be left wondering, how come this great man and his premiership were not given the regard, certainly, which he gave to it in that speech at the summit. The great thing is, I'm speaking this morning based on what I know is the composition of the nationwide audience. I'm speaking largely to people who were here and who know that what Mr. Percival said to us last week, in the words of, well, one of the favorite words of one of the men who served his cabinet, Keith Desmond Knight, what we heard at the summit was balderdash. The facts don't support the narrative that Mr. Patterson spun. And the thing with Mr. Patterson's premiership is that, you know, I like to quote my favorite rapper in these instances, you know, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Even though men and women lie with numbers. And what he sought to communicate is vastly different from the reality of those 14 years. Now, there's so much to go into where Patterson and his 14 years are concerned, or were concerned. Mr. Percival's brand of leadership, in many respects, there are good things to take from it. The way he handled certain ministers. In my view, the highlight of Mr. Percival's 14 years was the liberalization of the telecom sector by one Philip Paulwell. And those close to the action say, well, that was more Paulwell's doing than Mr. Percival. So you should give Paulwell all the credit. Acknowledge that Mr. Percival was the Prime Minister at the time, but it really was Paulwell's work. And we all know that Philip Paulwell wrung every bit of goodwill out of that liberalization of the telecom sector towel
to the extent that for the many other things that he got up to, there was barely enough of the goodwill left to tide him over. Mr. Percival said, look, when the bad times came, it's youthful exuberance. That was him being grateful to what Paul had done for his administration. But that was a highlight for me. And that was hugely significant, is hugely significant in the history. But it's not Mr. Percival's work. It's Philip Paul's work. I'll tell you what Mr. Percival's work really is. Before that, he said something in 2003 that I think is at the heart of the problem Mr. Percival is facing at this time. And as I listened to him some weeks ago talking about the country on his watch and how good it was, and the backlash that he received, sufficient for them to organize another function for him to set the record straight, I said to myself, you are right in believing what you believed about the problem Mr. Percival has. And here's the problem. 2003, September, the PNP's 65th annual conference. Mr. Percival made a speech, parts of it which will go down in the history of the politics in this country. And in that speech was transmitted the real problem Mr. Percival had then and still has now. Here's what he said. Every leader has a different style, and my style is the style, he told conference in 2003. I am a humble man, and I will always be to my dying day. Blood runs through my veins like everybody else's, but I know that I have never got the respect where respect is due for the things that I have done. He said, I have built more highways than anybody else. I have done more to reduce poverty than everybody else. More people have running water. More people stop use kerosene. More people have electricity. More people have telephone. And more men have gal than at any time else, said our Prime Minister in 2003. So part of his legacy as he wound down his premiership was that under his leadership, more men in Jamaica have gal. Yeah? That didn't go down well at the time. It is funny now rather than being crass. But that was Mr. Percival speaking. It wasn't the gal aspect. Well, we were caught up in that at the time. I remember the country was. But the more significant point Mr. Percival was making was that he didn't feel as if he had the respect he certainly thinks he deserves. And that's the problem. Mr. Percival has long been jealous of the adoration and adulation that the comrades give to Joshua. The love of Michael Manley and for Michael Manley and justified Michael Manley is one of the great Jamaicans. Yes, I never said perfect. Great Jamaicans, there is no doubt about that. Percival James Patterson wants to be like that. In fact, if you listen to the PNP bigwigs speak, and especially during campaign time when they're doing their set piece presentations, it's almost obligatory to have a quote or three from Joshua in your speech. It's not complete without it. Nobody quotes PJ Patterson. Nobody quotes PJ Patterson. The comrades don't. And so I find it curious that the respect that not even the comrades have for you, Mr. Percival, you want the Jamaican public to then accord you that. On what basis, I don't know. Your tenure, your premiership was such that you are barely mentioned. Mrs. Simpson Miller gets adoration and adulation. She gets copious amounts of it. You, on the other hand, longest serving, won more elections than anybody else, and done all the great things you say you did, and yet still you fall short of the adulation and adoration measures, which is why it's so curious that a PNP hierarchy that quite rightly avoids mentioning the Patterson years, avoids mentioning what Mr. Percival did at the wicket, now brings him back to boost its election campaign. So, apart from feeling unappreciated and being unappreciated within the walls of his own party, Mr. Percival is now appealing to Jamaica to give him the love that not even comrades are giving him. I'll tell you how we remember you, Mr. Percival. And there are so many numbers to use. You will be remembered as the Prime Minister who heaped more debt on the back of every Jamaican man, woman, and child than every Prime Minister before you and every Prime Minister since. You will be remembered as the man who, when 1992 ran its course and that year finished, the public debt was about $60 billion. By November 2005, 4 months before you left office, Mr. Percival, that 60 billion debt that you left us, well, that we started with in 1992, had swollen to 830 billion by November 2005. That's how we will remember you, Mr. Percival, as the debt Prime Minister. We'll also remember you, Mr. Percival, as the murder Prime Minister. Because it was on your watch that we hit murders 1,000 for the year for the first time and sustained it. 1992, 629 murders. 93, 654 murders. 94, 690. 95, 780. 96, 925. 97 for the first time ever. 1,000, 1,038 for good measure. 98, 953. 99, 849. 2,887. 2001, 1,139. 2002, 1,045. 2003, 976. 2004, 1,471. And as a last lick, Mr. Percival, in 2005, your last full year, 1,674. So in the time you were at the wicket, Mr. Percival, 13,710 Jamaicans murdered in their own country. Private security exploded because everybody are grilled up and try to keep possession and limbs and lives safe. On your watch, the record will show more Jamaicans lost their lives to the gun and to murder on your watch than everybody else. That's how we will remember you. And so I say, Mr. Percival, I didn't even have to touch FinSAC to prove that you have no moral authority to enter any argument about how this country is run. And in tandem with your former finance minister, the two of you together remind me of Dick Dastardly and Motley from Wacky Racers. You did to this country what Phillips and Simpson Miller, Holness and Shaw, Holness and Clark, and now Holness and Favour Williams are trying to correct. I say to you, Mr. Percival, you talk about you missed the days when you would put on your gown and go to court. Put on your nightgown and go to bed. I might kick over your chamber pot on the way.
Well, there you have it. As about the debt, though, I recall when PJ said something about the debt, I think that needs some investigation. I was looking at it while I was doing this video. And already I see there appears to have been a contradiction. But as I said, I will investigate and bring it to your attention. But insofar as the murder is concerned, I distinctly remember it myself. Yes, K.D. Knight was the Minister of National Security and Justice, if I remember right. And he was there from 1989 until 1991. And this is the legacy of a man called PJ Patterson. Perhaps from his experience of being forced to resign because of the Shell waiver scandal. Now, that scandal had to do with a waiver granted to Shell Company, which at the time was chaired, if I remember right, by a PNP member, Howard Hamilton. The cabinet had approved that the Shell Company should receive a waiver of the duties. and they were granted. But a second waiver was granted and it was not approved by cabinet. Somebody ball it out. And of course, it brought tremendous embarrassment to the government. And the proper thing for PJ Patterson to have done, the decent thing to have done, when him see that him party was in trouble, was to take for himself, resign. But he chose not to do so. And force Michael, this is somebody who he worked with for years. And so Michael Manley must have felt a way that this man just would not go. And he forced him to ask him to resign. And he still wouldn't go. And the story is that it was Dr. Peter Phillips that Manley charged to go to PJ with a letter and don't leave him house until him sign it. And that's exactly what Dr. Phillips told him when he went to him house. I am not leaving until you sign the letter. And he did sign it. And then he came in a public broadcast to tell you, and us, I shall return. And return he did. Yes, we got a lot of benefits out of it, his return. But I don't know, and I think I agree with George, that it was Philip Paulwell who really came with the policies. Perhaps he was one who made the suggestions, but credit to PJ Patterson. He saw where it would be of benefit, I suppose, to the people of Jamaica, and he took them on board. Not to mention the fact that he'll also have increased his chances of winning the elections with these policies. When you look at what has been done for this country since independence, Michael Manley came in with a raft of laws which benefited people. You had the labor laws, you had the redundancy, you had maternity leave. He brought in a literacy program because 60% of the people, they said, could not read and write. And that was Jamal, and a whole lot of other stuff that he had done, which was supposed to have improved the people's lot in terms of the benefits. But when you look at the PNP of the 90s or any government after, the single most contribution was actually made by a man named Philip Paulwell. It was he who had drafted the Fair Competitions Act. And that piece of legislation, right, was a foundation for competition in the economy, because we never had any competition before. You used to have people grouped together, and when them feel like it, them raise the price, right? I remember, never forgot, when Nestle raised the price of them condensed milk. And they asked them, but why did you raise the price of the condensed milk? You hear what I'm saying? Oh, because we have not raised it in 4 years. That was the reason, right? To putting cost on the backs of people, because they never raised it in 4 years, not because the cost had gone up. And so all of them were doing this. They were ganging together, those who were in the chicken business or those who were in the gas station business, and they were fixing the prices. So when they came in with the Fair Competitions Act, I believe Paulwell was at the trade board, right? Then there's also the motor vehicle policies. You had the sole JPS, and even though the light was more expensive, we got reliable service out of them. It wasn't so reliable in the past. And then there was also the telecommunications. That perhaps is his greatest achievement. So he has done a lot for Jamaica in terms of these raft of policies that made the country what it is now in terms of technology, motor vehicle and so on. Of course, we end up having to build all these roads. But I digress. I started by saying that perhaps the experience of PJ Patterson and the fact that he was forced to resign because of his decision with respect to the shell waiver scandal. He and Horace Clark, who at the time, I believe, was the Minister of Energy. So they resigned. And I'm thinking that because of that embarrassment, when he became Prime Minister, he would not remove people who was embarrassing the party. Right? Powell was one of them. One can see why I would hold on to Powell, because Powell was the one coming up with all these things. And in the course of all of that, what made it worse was that he never sought to protect the party's image. He never sought to come out and give any explanation, right? And in some instances, it was easily done. It wasn't until after the PNP lost in 2007, and then the Labour Party was there for 2 years to look for all these evidence of the scandals that Shaw was bringing almost every week, right? And the only thing they came up with was Karen Spencer. So that means that there were explanations. He did not protect the party. And now him coming to set records straight. Who the hell cares? The damage has already been done. And when George spoke about the fact that he was or maybe jealous of the attention that Michael Manley was getting, George went so far as to say he wanted to be like Michael, right? In other words, he wanted to have the same kind of adoration. I don't see PJ as that, I don't think PJ could care less at that time. But that was only because either that he was in the mix of things and not looking forward, right? Or he just wasn't, he just was not insightful enough to see the future that he would be alive today. And what will people say of him? I don't know if he cared. And now that he's in it, it seems as if he may be having regrets. Short-sightedness is what I would accuse him of. And so he has to suffer the indignity despite the fact that he did all the things that he did, built more highways at that time, more highways than anybody else, did more for the poor. Because of the Fair Competition Act, prices came down. So people could wear jeans pants that used to sell for $1,300 when the money was at 13 to 1. $1,300. When it went up to 20 odd and more, people can buy jeans pants for $200 because then people used to go at China and India, anywhere it sells cheap, and brought it in. So indeed, the poor people were not affected by what was going on in the bigger picture of the economy, which is the reason why PJ was able to win the election after election, and the PNP got 4 consecutive terms in office, right? Now, the same thing is true. There is still a Fair Competition Act, and people can just walk, and as long as they walk far enough and know where to get the bargains, they can still survive and make their money stretch. So that is what he's complaining about. He did more for the poor than anybody else, and yet he's not getting the respect. But PJ seemed to me to have always been laboring under the view that as a black man, seemingly a pure-blooded black man, he was always going to get a fight. But again, had he been insightful, he would have observed that his leadership of this country was anything but a mass of contradictions. On the one hand, he's talking about values and attitude and wanting to change values and attitude. And on the other hand, he was pushing through legislation seemingly to limit people's rights, right? And his party was engaged in all manner of scandals, and nobody would resign. And he wasn't forcing them to resign in order to protect the image of the party. No. So he was the one who contributed to his own disrespect, right? Perhaps influenced by his own embarrassment. He never want nobody else to go through that. And on top of that, he never sought to explain what it was that was being called a scandal, right? Perhaps it was arrogance. Perhaps him never need the press. All he had to do was to make sure that the PNP could win the election, and that's all that mattered to him. So he complained he didn't get the respect. And now, as George pointed out, and it is true, Michael Manley and Portia certainly are the two most loved leaders, right? Norman Manley kind of further removed. And PJ can't get a quote from anybody. Nobody can quote him. But did he say anything that was worth quoting? More man have gal is what people going to remember him by. Why would he, a man of such intelligence, open his mouth and say such rubbish on a political platform? Because he want a little ray and yay from the comrades and never knew that it was going to go down in history as a blot against him. These are the kind of short-sightedness I'm talking about. And what is even more amazing is that now is the time you want to set the record straight. Why? Why? That the horse done gone already. The time to set the record straight was back in the 90s when you were Prime Minister, Mr. PJ. Mass PJ. You might as well send this, go give him to. What you're setting the record straight for. And then by coming out, right? I mean, I don't understand these people. I suppose some people will view you as an asset. Well, you must be the only asset the risers can depend on. You're the only asset them can depend on to come and see if them can get the comrades them to fall in line. Right? After all, you were winning elections for them. But how many people listen to your PJ? Not even them, as George said, not giving you any respect. And that is because it was you who caused the party to be in this position. You should never, ever have become Prime Minister of this country. You should not have been. And your stewardship caused no ends of problem and grief to people. You were there to defend not only the poor and to build infrastructure. You were there also to defend the human rights, to defend the security, and to defend the livelihood of the people. Which one of those did you succeed in? Building infrastructure, and then you fail everywhere else. Yes, there were problems, but the party was in opposition for 9 years, not doing nothing, hardly talking to. So no should have come hitting the ground running. And in some respects, it appears that the party did, because it came in with the Fair Competition Act. And what Michael was attempting to do was to introduce socialism in a free market. Yes, I was reading what the things that he was saying at the time. But then it was you who caused the derailment at the time, PJ, when you caused the money supply to increase by 120%. And that was the beginning of all our problems at that time that continued even to this day. Face facts. You were the Minister of Finance and you wanted to create a money illusion. And therefore, when Michael Manley fired you or forced you to resign, he had every right to do so because you were the cause. Right? When people elect people to lead them, they expect them to come with solutions to their problems, not with a mouthful of excuses. So when I want to hear what the excuses were, you failed. And it's as simple as that. Yes, you accomplished some things, but for the most part, you failed. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it now. And sad to say, that is life. The time to have solved the country's problem was at the time when you were Prime Minister, and you never get it done. No. And I suspect that what is your problem, Mas PJ, I'm addressing you now, is not that you're interested in setting any records straight to help the People's National Party. No. But you must know very well that there are many people who must be waiting until your eyes close so that they can get to work on you. Because as long as you're alive, people will be afraid of lawsuit. Yes. But you see, when your eyes close, ooh, field day. So you are now trying to set the narrative on your legacy straight. That's what you're doing in order to influence what it is that people say about you when you're gone. But guess what, Mas PJ? That's not going to happen. Well, at least I don't think so. The best thing perhaps for you to do, if you're mindful to take a little bit of advice from somebody much younger than you, is that you let it rest and go and enjoy your life and don't worry about a thing, because there's nothing you can do to undo the past. The record is there. Yes. Anyway, folks, let me leave it here for now. And I want to thank you for being with me today, for listening, for sharing, liking this video, as well as remembering to subscribe. Yes, please remember to subscribe. Yes. All right. And of course, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. So until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.